Frederick III and his British-born wife Victoria had a total of 8 children together. You might recognize the most famous of them all, the later German Emperor and King of Prussia, Wilhelm II. But who were his other 7 siblings? Well, we will answer that question in this 2-part series, starting today with his 4 sisters. Princess Charlotte of Prussia was born on July 24, 1860 in Potsdam as the eldest daughter of her parents. Through her mother, she was a granddaughter of Queen Victoria and Albert, the prince consort. Charlotte and her older brother Wilhelm were the only grandchildren to meet their grandfather, Prince Albert, as all of his other grandchildren were born after his death. As her mother's eldest daughter, she enjoyed a close relationship with her. But things changed when Charlotte was around 2 years old. The young princess started showing signs of nervousness and anxiety. Further, she was underweight and had a troublesome digestion. Due to her then unknown diagnosis, Charlotte soon got the nickname Naughty Dita. Her mother, who was known as Vicky in the family, struggled to understand her firstborn daughter's health issues. You can find many entries in Vicky's diaries in which she describes Charlotte's many states of rage and delusion. Over the years, Charlotte was joined by 6 more siblings. But when her 2 younger brothers, Sigismund and Waldemar, died in 1866 and 1879, the family drifted apart. Victoria, who had been extremely strict to her eldest children, was inconsolable after the death of her 2 sons. Noticing that Victoria became less strict to the youngest 3 siblings, Victoria, Sophia, and Margaret, the elder siblings started distancing themselves. Charlotte shared a close relationship with her eldest brother Wilhelm up until his marriage with Princess Augusta Victoria. Charlotte, who was well known for her gossiping, described her brother's wife as plain and shy, which resulted in a rift between her and Wilhelm. To escape her mother, Charlotte became engaged to Prince Bernhard of Saxe-Meiningen in April 1877. Their wedding followed in 1878, and a year later, Charlotte gave birth to her only child, Theodora. Following Theodora's birth, Charlotte began traveling and spent much of her time throwing lavish parties, leaving her daughter in the care of her mother, whom she used like a nanny. Charlotte's health problems worsened dramatically over the years, and by the end of the First World War, opium was her only comfortable treatment. Charlotte of Prussia ultimately died of a heart attack at the age of 59 in 1919. Today we know that Charlotte most likely suffered from porphyria, the same illness her great-great-grandfather George III suffered from. Charlotte's younger sister was Princess Victoria of Prussia. She was born 6 years after her older sister and was baptized Friederike, Amalia, Wilhelmine, Victoria. Unlike her eldest 3 siblings, Victoria and her younger siblings were raised by their mother personally, which resulted in a strong bond. Trying to bring closer her own liberal views, Victoria's mother appointed English nannies and often made visits to her family over in Britain. Victoria was a lively child who enjoyed gardening and dancing. She once was gifted a pony by her grandmother, Queen Victoria, which she rode often. In 1889, her parents decided on Alexander, the Prince of Bulgaria, as a suitable husband for their daughter and therefore invited Alexander to the Prussian court. Victoria fell in love with Alexander, and also her parents continued to support the match. But the rest of the Prussian court was against the marriage. This state of uncertainty went on for the next 7 years until Victoria's grandfather, Emperor Wilhelm I, died. However, Victoria's father only reigned for 99 days until he died from throat cancer, leaving the throne to Victoria's brother Wilhelm. Frederick wished for in his will for Wilhelm, now known as Wilhelm II, to let Victoria marry Alexander. But Wilhelm wrote a letter to Alexander declaring the official end to their relationship, leaving Victoria devastated. Victoria was by now 22 and was afraid she would end up unmarried. She therefore rushed into depression. Considering herself ugly, Victoria starved herself with a strict diet. When Prince Karl of Sweden and other suitors refused to marry her, her eating disorder worsened and she told her grandmother, Queen Victoria, that she would never marry. Eventually, Victoria met Prince Adolf of Schaumburg-Lippe and he proposed to her in 1890. It is not clear if Victoria was happy with the match, as you find different letters from her. She, however, remained depressed. Shortly after their wedding, Victoria suffered a miscarriage and never got pregnant again. The couple's marriage was peaceful, however, Victoria did not love him and she constantly returned back to her eating disorder. Adolf died during the First World War, leaving Victoria a widow after over 20 years of marriage. After his death, Victoria wished to marry one of Adolf's nephews, but Wilhelm rejected this idea. In 1927, Victoria met the 35 years younger Alexander Zubkov, a Russian immigrant who was studying law. Victoria spoiled the 27-year-old over the next few weeks until Alexander proposed to her. Without asking for permission from her brother, Victoria renounced her titles and married Alexander after knowing him for only 2 months. As you can guess, this was a huge scandal at that time. After only a few months of marriage, the couple separated and filed for divorce, ushering Victoria into financial problems. She had to sell almost all of her belongings and move into a single-bedroom apartment in the suburbs of Bonn. Victoria died there suddenly at the age of 63 in 1929. Next we have Sophia, who was born on June 14, 1870. Sophia is most famously known for being the queen consort of Greece to her husband Constantine I. She is also the grandmother of Queen Sophia of Spain and former King Constantine II of Greece. Sophia met Constantine in 1887 and they became fond of each other. Sophia's mother considered her as the most beautiful of her daughters and hoped for her to make a good marriage. The young couple became engaged in 1888, shortly after the death of Sophia's father. Not everybody supported the match. Kaiser Wilhelm II and his wife, and also Constantine's mother, viewed the match with reluctance. Despite hesitation, Sophia and Constantine married in 1889. Their first child, a premature son, followed a little less than 9 months after their wedding, and 5 more children followed. After the birth of her first child, Sophia decided to convert to Greek Orthodoxy, much to the joy of her parents-in-law, but much to the dismay of her brother and sister-in-law. Despite Wilhelm threatening Sophia to ban her from the Prussian royal family, she converted in 1891. Sophia faced political instability in Greece, which was caused due to several wars fought. As the sister of the German emperor who openly supported the Ottomans, she never became popular with the citizens of Greece. The instability lastly ended with the deposition of Constantine, who at that point had been king of the Hellenes for 4 years. The family was forced to flee their country and to take refuge across Europe. Constantine and Sophia returned to Greece for a second tenure as king and queen, but this time Constantine's reign only lasted for 2 years until he was forced to abdicate in favor of his son. Constantine died in 1923 while in exile in Italy. Sophia remained in Italy during the next few years where she lived with her daughters. She spent her time taking trips to Germany, the UK, and even to the Netherlands where she met her brother Wilhelm in 1929 for the first time in 15 years. In late 1932, Sophia was diagnosed with cancer and died of it in January 1933. Frederick and Victoria's youngest child was Princess Margaret. She was born in 1872 while her parents were the Crown Prince and Princess of Prussia and the German Crown Prince and Princess. Margaret's full name was Margaret Beatrice Theodora, with her godparents being the later Queen Consort of Italy, Margherita, and Emperor Pedro II of Brazil. Young Margaret fell in love with Prince Maximilian of Baden, but the feelings were not mutual. In fact, Prince Maximilian, also known as Max von Baden, would later be the one announcing Margaret's brother Wilhelm's abdication in November 1918. Margaret moved on and eventually married Prince Frederick Charles of Hesse. Although Wilhelm, by then Kaiser, was against the marriage, he eventually gave his blessing. Margaret and Frederick Charles enjoyed a happy marriage which resulted in 6 children. All of them were boys. Margaret's mother, who always had a close bond to her youngest daughter, also liked Margaret's husband, and over the time he became her favorite son-in-law. Prince Frederick Charles was offered the throne of newly independent Finland in 1918 but renounced it after 2 months. During this time, Margaret was the queen consort-elect of Finland. Tragedy struck the family during the First World War when their second-born son, Prince Maximilian, died while in action when he was seriously wounded by machine gun fire. The eldest son, Prince Frederick Wilhelm, died in 1916 when his throat was slit by an enemy bayonet. In 1926, Margaret's husband became Landgrave of Hesse, making her Landgravine. 2 of their sons became Nazi supporters and fought alongside the Germans during the Second World War. While it is also to mention that Margaret most likely was a Nazi supporter. Hitler would visit her at her home and they drank tea together while he promised her family to restore the monarchy. When one of Margaret's sons, Philip, realized the reality of the Nazis, he started betraying Hitler by helping Jews flee to the Netherlands. As a revenge, Hitler imprisoned him and his wife. His wife, who was the daughter of Victor Emmanuel III, died at Buchenwald following a wound to her arm caused by bombings. Another one of Margaret's sons died during the Second World War. Further, she lost another daughter-in-law when she was killed during a bomb attack on Frankfurt. Margaret lived for 9 more years after the Second World War before she died in 1954 at the age of 81. She was the last of Frederick III's children to die. I want to add that I did not find out how Margaret felt about the Nazis after the Second World War.